Actor Jonathan Majors recently did an interview with ABC News, which is ironically owned by the Walt Disney Company, which owns Marvel Studios, who fired him from the role of Kang the Conqueror to double down on his innocence despite multiple convictions of guilt over a domestic abuse case that happened last March. Before we get into this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. With that out of the way, this is up over at thatparkplace.com, your number one place for pop culture news. After being convicted of misdemeanor assault and harassment, Jonathan Major says, quote, "I was reckless with her heart, not with her body." In an interview with ABC News that was shared in piecemeal to Good Morning America this morning, Majors said he was absolutely shocked and afraid by the guilty verdict. He said, I'm standing there and the verdict comes down, and I say, how is that possible based off the evidence, based off the prosecution's evidence, let alone our evidence? How is that possible?" So shocked that he was found guilty of misdemeanor assault and harassment. When asked about Jabbari's claim that Majors, quote, hit her in the face, twisted her arm behind her back, and fractured her middle finger, Majors denied it, telling ABC News that did not happen. He was then asked how the injuries occurred, and he said, "I wish that I had knew. That would give clarity. That would give me some type of peace about it." He then went on to assert that he has no question that he did not inflict the wounds. He then played the race card, shockingly, surprisingly. I mean, come on, are we really surprised? Can you tell that I'm being sarcastic there? He said, if you watch those videos and you reverse that and you saw a black man chasing a young white girl down the street screaming and crying, that man is going to be shot and killed in the streets of New York City. Utterly ridiculous, absurd claim, just off the wall, absurd. I mean, I think by playing the race card, he completely undermines any kind of argument of innocence here. It's just, I'm sorry. Like, if you're having to play that card, it's game over. You're lying. That's just kind of where I'm at this point right now. I'm sick and tired of people trying to use these victim cards in order to give them some kind of victimhood status that attempts to obscure their wrongdoings. It's just utterly ridiculous, and I'm sick and tired of it. And maybe it's wrong for me to kind of go on this assumption, but I think we've seen too many times over and over again that when you do indeed play this card, you're usually at fault. He then went on and claimed that he was injured. He said, "My injuries had a scratch on my hand, from clawing for the phone, and I had a gash on my eye. At the time, I had a beard. Under my beard, I had essentially a fingernail scratch on my cheek from pressure, and that bled overnight." And then when he was asked, "Do you feel that you are not responsible for injuries at all?" This is what he said: "I shouldn't have been in the car. I shouldn't have stepped out of the relationship. I shouldn't have been in the relationship. If I'm not in the car, none of this is happening. If I leave the relationship, none of this is happening. If I'm man enough or brave enough to say, I want to see somebody else, or I'm done now, I'm not in that car. We're not there. We're not here. I'm responsible for those things." When pressed again on her injuries, he said, "Can't say that. None of her injuries," saying he was not responsible for them. But he does say that he didn't want to actually be in the situation in the first place, and he should have dumped her ahead of time and not picked her up, etc., etc. Again, still kind of obviously not taking any kind of responsibility for his own actions, which are clearly, I think, recorded on camera. And then if we go back to this part here, there's another segment that Good Morning America posted. He was asked if he was reckless in his actions, and he said, "I was reckless with her heart." Then ABC News' Lindsay Davis prompted him, said, "Not with her body." And he responded, "Not with her body." And then when asked if he did anything wrong on the night of the assault occurred, he reiterated his previous comment, saying, "I wouldn't have picked her up. I wouldn't have picked her up. I wouldn't have tried to put her back in the car. I wouldn't have tried to keep her in the car. I would have gotten out of that car and ran immediately." He does think he will work again in Hollywood. This is what he said. He said, "Yeah, I do. I pray I do. It's God's plan and God's timing." And then when asked if he deserves a second chance, he said, "Well, I think I do. I hope other people think that." So that is kind of what Jonathan Majors had to say in his interview with ABC News, which they're going to be rolling out over the course of a number of programs and networks. Grace Jabbari's attorney, Brittany Henderson, responded to Major's interview. This is the statement that she issued. It is not at all surprising that Majors continues to take no accountability for his actions. His denigration of our jury system is not dissimilar from the above the law attitude that he has maintained throughout this legal process. The timing of these new statements demonstrates a clear lack of remorse for the actions for which he was found guilty and should make the sentencing decisions fairly easy for the court. He is expected to be sentenced next month and faces up to a year in prison. I kind of concur with Grace Jabbari's attorney there, Brittany Henderson. I think that this interview is clearly a PR tactic to try and sway public opinion to Major's side, despite the criminal convictions. And the fact that he had to play the race card, the fact that he doesn't take any responsibility, the fact that he doesn't apologize at all, doesn't show any kind of remorse, I do think is telling on Major's part, because I do think there is video evidence of him showing the crimes that he was convicted of committing. So those are my thoughts on the matter. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know what you think about what Jonathan Majors had to say. Remember to always be charitable, but to always speak the truth.